5 years ago, I was eating less than 1,400 calories and doing more cardio than ever. Today, at 50, I eat about 2,000 calories, lift 4 days a week, and my waist has never been tighter. Most women over 40 are under eating, and that is why belly fat won't move. Today, I'm going to explain how eating more can actually improve fat loss in midlife, how metabolism adapts to chronic dieting, and how to rebuild your metabolic salary so that fat loss starts working again. If you're new here, my name is Janine. I'm a nutrition and fitness coach, and I'm also a menopause coaching specialist. I'm 50 years old, in menopause myself, and I help women thrive in midlife, lose body fat, gain muscle, and live their very best life without chronic dieting. If that sounds interesting to you, before we go on, make sure you smash that subscribe button, hit the bell to be notified when I post new videos. Now let's get into it. First, I want to explain to you what metabolic adaptation actually is. It's not that your metabolism is broken, and why women in midlife are more affected by this situation is because by the time we hit our 40s and 50s, we've likely been chronic dieting for decades. And what chronic dieting does, meaning you are always trying to eat very little in order to lose weight on the scale, what that does to your metabolism is your body outsmarts it. Your body will adapt and slow down your metabolism to account for the fact that you're not eating enough calories. How does it do this? By powering down non-essential systems like hair, skin, and nails, movement that's unnecessary movement, even like talking with my hands. Your body will power that down. Essentially, your body becomes more efficient at operating and staying alive at very low calories. So that is what it will do instead of releasing the body fat. It will power things down. Think about this. We all have an iPhone, right? You know how when your battery is getting low, you can put it into low power mode so that it conserves energy and can actually still run? That's what you're doing. Years of chronic dieting puts us into low power mode, which means those low calories that might have worked in your 30s, now those same calories in your 40s and 50s, you won't drop a single pound. In fact, you might even start to gain weight at very low calories. That is metabolic adaptation. So in a nutshell, a 1,200 calorie diet will lower caloric output, metabolic output, by powering down the non-essential systems. Your NEAT will drop and you won't even realize it, meaning, like I mentioned, talking with your hands or even like shaking your leg when you're sitting down. You'll stop doing those things. You won't even realize it, but it's your body's way of conserving energy. The other thing that happens in midlife that's going to slow down that metabolism is typically you're not eating enough protein to sustain your muscle, and you're not doing strength training in a way that will build muscle. And muscle is like your currency. It is your metabolic currency. And when you lose muscle, your ability to handle calories drops. So you basically lose money. Muscle equals money. And what it boils down to is you will get softer and softer, and you'll be eating less and less, and you just will not see the results. I see this firsthand all of the time with my one-on-one clients. Many of them come to me saying they are hardly eating and can't lose a pound. And they feel sometimes the need to, I swear I'm really not eating that much. And I'm like, listen, you don't have to explain it to me. I know exactly what's going on. Now, let me preface this by saying some people do overeat, and that is a problem. And sometimes the perception is that you're undereating, but really you're undereating some of the time, which causes you to overeat other times. That's also a situation that happens. It is my job as a coach to figure out what situation is happening for you. That's why when I start working with a client at first, we go into an assessment phase. And I kind of assess based on how your body's responding, what you're eating, all of the different biofeedback and data points that I collect, I can determine pretty quickly what phase or what situation you fall into, which will determine for me as a coach what phase I put you into. I can fix them all, but it's really so important in midlife to identify what phase you really belong in. And I think most people make that mistake. They just automatically think that they need to be in a fat loss phase because they want to lose body fat. And that's actually not the case. Sometimes it requires a stabilization phase where we're trying to build your calorie bank back up first so that your body can become super responsive to the fat loss. So your goal might be fat loss, but that might not be the phase in which you begin. And that is the magic that happens inside of my coaching program. But before we go too far into this video, if you're interested in getting on a strategy call and talking through what my program entails, you can scan the QR code up on the screen. That's a 30-minute strategy call. It's actually with my daughter, Alyssa. If you've been watching me for a while, you've seen her on my channel. She's on my team. She's a NASM certified personal trainer, and she does the intakes. She can go over your goals, what you're looking to do, give you all the information about my programs and maybe what you might be a fit for. So scan the QR code if you might be interested in that. Typically, when I have a client that comes to me with this situation, they've been chronic dieting, we go into a rebuilding phase first. And depending on your individual responsiveness will determine how long that rebuilding phase is. It could be very short, it could be a little longer, but we basically strategically add more calories, teach your body how to utilize those calories effectively to build muscle so that your body feels safe. You build up that metabolic currency, and then your body becomes so sensitive to losing body fat and it becomes very effective. It's a very cool phenomenon. When I take my clients through this, they typically say, I haven't lost weight like this since I was in my 20s. Like my body never responds like this. The thing about metabolic adaptation is just as it adapts down to conserve energy, it can adapt up. The body is amazing. I think we just focus on metabolic adaptation as a negative thing, but it's not a negative thing. It's dynamic. It can go up and down, and my specialty is helping rebuild it and come back up. I just had to do it myself. And if you haven't checked out that series here on my channel, I documented the whole process. It's called my Road to 50 series. I think there's like 19 episodes, but if you're curious about what my specific process was, take a look at that series. Keep in mind, since it's not cookie cutter, everybody's going to fall into a slightly different process depending on where their starting point is. I like to pride myself on the fact that I've had like 6 different bodies in my lifetime. In my 20s, I lost over 100 pounds and was able to pretty much maintain it over the years, but it did lead me into a lot of chronic dieting in the 20s and 30s in order to, out of fear, really, of going backwards and gaining that weight back. But on a positive note, it gave me a really great personal experience in which I draw upon all the time to coach clients. And now that I'm in midlife and menopause and all the things, I can coach from that experience as well. I typically see what works best for midlife women is to start them out in like a stabilize phase, making sure that you can handle a certain amount of calories, focusing on a strength phase, and then diving into an effective fat loss phase. Problem is, most people skip right to the fat loss phase. Now, there are a lot of different scenarios that someone can fall into when they are wanting to get their body to respond to fat loss again. But for the most part, if your issue has been years of chronic dieting, I find that these 3 phases work very, very effective. Phase number 1 is to stabilize. What stabilize means is to slowly and incrementally increase calories, keeping protein high, and monitoring the body's response to the increased calories. A lot of times, women might be very fearful of this process, but their body will actually start dropping body fat in a stabilization phase, which is a really cool thing that happens. And it has to do with your metabolism responding to more calories and turning off low power mode, essentially. powering up the non-essential systems that had been previously powered down. And a lot of times you'll start experiencing fat loss even in the stabilization phase, even though that's not the primary goal. The primary goal in the stabilization phase is to make sure that your starting point, your maintenance calories are at a healthy place that we can deduct from once we enter into the fat loss phase. Once stabilization is determined and figured out and it's locked in, then the next phase is strength. That is progressively building your strength with a proper strength training program so that we can increase that metabolic currency even further. Remember, what I mentioned earlier is when you build muscle, this increases your capacity to take in calories. So that metabolic threshold increases, and now you're even in a better spot to be able to go into the fat loss phase. Phase 3, typically, we've got your fat loss phase. And now, once you've been through stabilization and strength, in the fat loss phase, suddenly your calories only have to be dropped a little bit and are likely hundreds of calories more than ever before in a fat loss phase, and your body will start releasing fat. This is where you will feel like fat's coming off like you were in your 20s. This happened to me in my road to 50. During my strength phase, I got up to 2,600 calories and I lost 16 pounds in 12 weeks doing a calorie deficit. The lowest I dropped my calories was like 1,700 to 1,800, and that was towards the end. Initially, I was at like 2,400, then 22. I was eating quite a bit and losing body fat and was able to lose 16 pounds in 12 weeks. I have not been able to lose weight in that capacity since my 30s. So it's very effective. And it's a pretty cool feeling to see your body responding again in ways that it hasn't in decades. It's the same thing that I experience with my clients as well. It's pretty cool. The other thing we do in that's really important in the fat loss phase, especially after you've done an effective strength phase, is we don't just monitor scale weight. That's a tiny data point. We monitor your waist because that is going to really come in an effective fat loss phase because you're losing true body fat and the weight on the scale is not lean muscle. A lot of times, especially for women in midlife, when you're chasing the scale weight and you're chronically dieting and you do finally get it to move, you're still not happy with the way your body looks because your body will be soft. Chances are the scale moved because you are losing lean tissue. And let me tell you, that is the one thing, and I know in my programs and with my clients, we treat muscle like gold. We don't want to lose it, and we certainly want to gain it because losing it is not that difficult, but gaining it can be very difficult. So we never sacrifice lean muscle to chase a number on the scale. We are going for body composition that's tight, that's toned, a midsection that's not soft, and you do that by a very controlled fat loss phase and monitoring waist measurement, scale weight, pictures, and many different data points, not just the scale. And we look at the scale in terms of trends on the scale, not individual numbers on the scale. At the end of the day, most midlife women skip phase 1, phase 2, and they're always chasing phase 3. And that's the biggest mistake that you can make. And that's why you're not getting the results that you want. At 50, I don't chase exhaustion. I build strength. I eat protein. I walk daily. This is why my body responds. This is why my waistline is smaller now at 24 inches than it has been in my entire life. If you want a lean, strong, toned midlife body, you do not need to eat less. You just need the right strategy for you. I cannot stress this enough. If you want my help, you know where to find me. Scan the QR code up on the screen. Let's chat about how I can help. Thank you so much for tuning into this video. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, comment below, let me know what else I can help you with, and I'll see you in the next one.